In a recent announcement by the United States, several thousand more U.S. troops are heading to the Middle East. Now, this move has been confirmed by the Pentagon, and this all aims to bolster security and provide defense support to Israel. So in this video, I want to talk about the escalating tensions in the area with Hezbollah, and I also want to talk about the overall context of this deployment. Like, why are we doing this? Why do we need more troops in the Middle East? And I want to make sure you guys understand what the implications are for regional stability and the potential consequences for U.S. foreign policy. Now, first things first, I'm sure many of you are aware what exactly is going on. Israel has indicated they have boots on the ground in Lebanon. They just took out a very high-ranking, the highest-ranking commander of Hezbollah. In fact, they took out all the highest-ranking members of Hezbollah. But to fully grasp the current situation, I want to take a step back and understand the historical context. The Middle East has long been a region fraught with conflict, particularly between Israel and Hezbollah, a militant group based out of Lebanon. And since its formation in the early 1980s, Hezbollah has positioned itself as a significant player in the region, receiving support from Iran and engaging in numerous conflicts with Israel. And again, recent developments have intensified this age-old conflict. Israel's military operations in Lebanon have escalated, particularly following the assassination of the Hezbollah leader, Hassan Nasrallah. And this assassination marks a watershed moment, as Nasrallah has been a pivotal figure in shaping Hezbollah's strategy and operation for decades. And look, his death does raise concerns about the potential retaliation from Hezbollah and further military escalations, not only from Hezbollah, but also from Iran, but we'll get to that later. Now, in response to all of this, the Pentagon has announced the deployment of a few thousand additional troops, which again, that's going to be around 3,000 more troops in the Middle East. This decision is not made lightly, though. It does reflect a calculated response to a rapidly evolving security landscape. In fact, the Pentagon indicated that this deployment would bring the total number of U.S. troops in the region to approximately 43,000 U.S. troops in the region. Now, I had made a couple of videos on this before, but this is different because now we have a little more details as to what exactly is the U.S. military bringing to the battlefield. Well, it's a lot. The additional forces being sent to the region will include various military assets that enhance U.S. capabilities. Specifically, this deployment will bring multiple squadron of advanced fighter jets, including the F-15E, F-16, F-22, and everyone's favorite, the A-10 attack aircraft. And rather than merely rotating these aircraft with existing squadrons, both the new and existing squadrons will remain operational. This doubling of air power aims to provide a robust deterrent. I mean, let's be honest, an A-10 in the area is pretty devastating, let alone F-15s, F-16s, F-22s, A-10s, just to name some of the aircraft right now in the area. And at the end of the day, this is really all meant as preventative measures. The U.S. military does not want to engage with anyone, but if they have to, they will. And one of the most active components right now in the Middle East happens to be the U.S. Navy. In addition to ground forces, the U.S. is enhancing its naval presence in the region. In fact, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin recently announced a temporary extension of the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, which will remain in the region for approximately 1 month from the time of me making this video. The presence of a carrier group is crucial as it provides significant air support and maritime security. And furthermore, the USS Harry Truman has recently departed from Virginia and is headed to the Mediterranean Sea. But again, these guys were already heading out to sea, so this doesn't necessarily include the several thousand more troops because again, these guys were already going to be heading out there. It just so happens Israel decided to deploy their forces in the Lebanon as the US is sending another aircraft carrier. But if I'm being honest with you, even as I'm thinking about all of this, I'm sure Israel knew this was going to happen, so they lined it up perfectly. Now, we have to talk about the political landscape real quick because I've been covering Israel and the Middle East for a very long time now, and constantly Joe Biden has kept saying, we don't want war, we don't want war, we want peace, there's going to be a negotiation, there's going to be a peace deal, and it never really ends up happening, so now all of a sudden the U.S. military has no choice but to send more forces in the Middle East. And the president's statements do reflect a broader concern for civilian safety and regional stability. The U.S. administration aims to balance its support for Israel with the need to address humanitarian concerns arising from prolonged conflicts. I mean, understand, the U.S. military is not only in the Middle East just to be involved in wars, they're also doing a massive humanitarian effort to not only help the people of Gaza, but really the entire area. Now, we have to talk about Hezbollah, because Hezbollah's actions in the wake of Nasrallah's assassination will be crucial in determining the course of events. I mean, historically, Hezbollah has demonstrated a capacity for rapid military responses, and a lot of analysts are closely watching for any signs of retaliation. And I gotta be honest with you, again, as I film this video, I'm seeing a few barrages here or there, but again, Israel has already entered into Lebanon, so it doesn't look like Hezbollah is going to get any significant strikes on Israeli troops or Israel in general. However, the potential for Hezbollah to leverage its military capabilities does raise some concerns about a wider regional conflict involving not just Israel, but also Iran. And let's be honest, the U.S. military's main objective is to make sure Iran does absolutely nothing in the region, because Iran, they are pulling the strings right now for all of the enemies of the United States, but also the enemies of Israel. And if you are unaware, Iran really is not afraid to take indirect shots at U.S. troops within Iraq. They have their own Iranian-backed militias in Iraq, and it's actually been a cause for concern. In fact, again, as I make this video, there have been talks about launches towards U.S. troops and Iraqi troops in the region. So, the decision to send additional troops to the Middle East is not merely a tactical response, but it also reflects a broader strategic framework in U.S. foreign policy. I mean, since the early 2000s, the U.S. has engaged in various military operations aimed at combating terror and stabilizing key allies. However, as tensions continue to rise, questions arise about the sustainability of U.S. military presence in the region and the effectiveness of deterrent strategy. Because even though the U.S. military has aircraft carriers, attack submarines, it doesn't stop the Houthis from doing what they want to do, and it didn't stop Hezbollah from doing what they want to do. Again, if anything, all of these deterrents really are stopping the conventional force that comes out of Iran. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is this. The public perception of the U.S. military actions in the Middle East definitely has evolved over the years. I mean, with social media and 24-hour news cycles, public awareness of military deployments is greater than ever. I mean, the Biden administration right now is facing a ton of scrutiny over this decision, and there are varying opinions on whether or not we should still have as many troops as we do in the Middle East. So overall, I can't fully gauge whether people fully support this or don't support this, but I think the majority of people from the United States support the idea of at least protecting our U.S. assets in the Middle East. I mean, talking about soldiers in Iraq, Syria, Jordan, stuff like that. And I totally forgot to mention this point. It has been stated that the current number of U.S. troops in the region, according to the Pentagon and other spokespeople for the government, they are stating that the amount of troops that are in the Middle East right now is enough in case an all-out war does break out to at least defend U.S. assets and allies right now in the Middle East. So again, this was all a tactical decision, and it was all calculated by the Pentagon, according to the Pentagon. And when you do have 2 aircraft carriers in the region and 1 submarine that we know about in the region, I don't think Iran wants to do anything. Again, a majority of this is to stop Iran from doing anything. The U.S. can contain the Houthis, Israel can contain Hezbollah and their other conflict they got going on. But at the end of the day, the main scare is Iran, because nobody knows what they're going to do, if I'm going to be honest with you. So as the U.S. moves to enhance its military presence in the Middle East, the complexities of regional dynamics and historical grievances must be acknowledged. The deployment of additional troops serves as both a response to immediate threats and a reflection of the U.S.'s long-standing commitment to its allies in the region. And if I'm being honest with you, in the coming weeks and months, this will all be critical in determining the effectiveness of this strategy and its implications for peace and stability in the region. So we'll see what happens, but again, if you're above the age of 20, you've heard this every single year of your life. More troops deployed to the Middle East, more troops deployed to the Middle East, but this is a totally different context, and we're actually seeing a almost new U.S. military, where we're talking U.S. Navy deterrence and Air Force deterrence are really going to be the backbone in stopping all of this, as far as not having an all-out regional war, because typically you rely on the ground forces like Marines or U.S. Army, but now we're actually seeing, no, we have the U.S. Navy doing work out there and the U.S. Air Force. So again, make sure to subscribe, because I will be keeping you guys all up to date on the effectiveness of all of this.